So now talk to us and talk to our audience about how you're making changes today and how you're working with individuals, how you're speaking and sharing this story. But more importantly, you're actually now helping and showing others how to avoid these situations, correct?
Yeah. So like I said, it was about 6 months into my own healing journey that the real story came out. You know, simple question at the end of a week long, we were at a film festival in a place called Ischia. And we had spent every night on the red carpet. We had spent every day doing dance classes and listening to actors and directors and script writers tell their stories. And I think when you become really, when you learn to just listen to people as they tell you your story and not always try and, you actually let yourself just hear what people are saying rather than trying to, process 10 days down the line or what am I going to be doing next week? And there was the morning that I eventually told my story. There was a gentleman called Lee Daniels, and his story hit me. It really made me see authenticity, vulnerability, and all those things. And like I say, I'd never, ever planned to tell anybody my story. That wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. That wasn't that wasn't my plan. Now that I was not going to end my life, what was my life going to be? Well, I was going to teach people how to be successful in all these small markets around the world. And then I was going to teach people how to be an ethical leader. But all the time pushing down this story of what was your reason to breathe and helping people find theirs. And eventually I stood up and I told my story. And straight afterwards, 2 girls stood up and both admitted to, one had an eating disorder and one had been abused. And both of them went on to get the help that they needed. Now, it was probably another 1.5 years before Your Reason to Breathe finally formed as it is now. But in telling that story and seeing how it could help other people was, you see this need for people to see that there are other people that are not okay, that it's okay to not be okay. And that sometimes you do need to say that you are not okay for other people to help you. So I had very much, written off every friend and family member I have that they would, I had assumed, I had made all these beliefs about they would be disappointed in me. And yet when I actually opened up to them and said what had been going on, without exception, it was, I would have been there in 5 minutes. I would have sat with you all night if I needed to. We would have been on the next flight. So people don't know that you need help until you tell them that you need help, especially if you have been putting on this mask of strong and successful and unflappable and an Instagram story that says, my life is wonderful.
And I think like when you told your story and those 2 women who stood up and said, here's what's really going, it's like you opened the door for them to say, this is what's going on with me. Like, I'm sure that because we have like this Instagram life that everything is beautiful. And then we finally share, like, here's the shit that's actually going on in my life. And it lets other people like, oh, it's okay that my life is not all together, that I haven't figured everything out by the time that I'm 22 or 25 years old, like this exact pathway. I think that there's so much power in story, in everybody's story, but you opening up about, and just that vulnerability moment, where we actually are just honest with ourselves and then honest with the people that are around us. And you've actually seen like the results of what happens when you do that. I mean, you've gotten emails from people who were in your audience when they hear you speak. Like just starting with those 2 women that you changed like right then and there.
And those are the ones that said something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Because I mean, like any of us, right, we get impacted by what people say, and down the road, we think about it. Sometimes sometimes information we get doesn't always make a lot of sense until
Later.
something sparks it, and then you make the connection. You're like, okay.
Well,
And
and that's exactly what Sarah said, where it still took another year for your reason to breathe to come to life, to get started. Like that you knew that this is part of your purpose. This is why you're here, is
Yeah.
for your reason to breathe.